Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in our webinar this morning. We're really happy to have you all in the call. Really excited to have you all and to show you what can be done with document management in the Workday ecosystem. We would like to start with a very brief introduction. So today with me in the call is Thomas Fritsch. Thomas is from PwC and is responsible for showing today the document tag solution that we'll see in a minute when it comes to archiving and everything else. With me is also my colleague Michael Büttner, who's my pre-sales colleague, who will guide us through the demos and give us a deeper insight into the document generation piece. And my name is Daniel Mitschke. I'm responsible for partner management at ESCRIBA. And as we're today here with our partner, PwC, it's my responsibility to guide us a little bit through the call itself. We have an agenda for today, and as we just finished the intro, we will cover the problem statement. So what is it that we're solving with the solution that we're proposing? What are alternatives to that solution and why do they fail? How does our solution behave in comparison to that? We'll give you a live demo of the different steps, talk about what could be next steps or what are the right next steps when you should be talking to us and when you're interested in the solution. And in the end, we'll answer all of your Q&A as well. The idea is you have a chat functionality or a Q&A or F&A, depends on your language settings. Feel free to use them and ask questions in the meantime while we're presenting. We will try to answer while we do it as much as we can. So especially if we have the feeling that it's something that is important to understand while we're doing demos or something else. If not, we will also have a Q&A section in the end where we'll cover all of the rest of the questions that might have come up in the meanwhile. And with that, on the next slide, as already said, we're really happy to do this session today together with our partners at PwC. We have formed this partnership more than 2 years ago, and we're really happy about it as we gain from our as we do the most out of it, as we both bring experience from different angles into this partnership, meaning that we combined our forces and our expertise in the different areas to bring one and the best solution in document management into the Workday ecosystem to solve the complexity of document management. And with this, I would hand over to Thomas to tell us a little bit more about that.
Then let's set the stage. Hello, everyone. Warm welcome. Let's dive right into it. Daniel, Michael, and myself and our overall partnership have been in the market for quite a while. And while we do perceive individual circumstances, overall, we see some tendencies and trends that we would like to show in the beginning and then hereby link to our solution statement. So we called it, with a catchy title, the ticking time bomb in HR documents. And with that, let's look at it more closely. We've identified the so-called silent quicksand, and this spans across 4 dimensions. The one and first dimension is the generation. I mean, of course, Workday itself provides a standard functionality when it comes to generation. There are other solutions out there, but the core complexity around generation is not that it's not functional, it's more about the standardization and the maintenance. And this is a huge gap we see when speaking with prospect clients and interested colleagues. Secondly, and that goes hand in hand, is of course the maintenance of the templates itself. On one hand side, it's a high maintenance effort, realizing that perhaps there are different layouts and templates per organization even, and expecting a company that not only resides in one country with only one entity, but in multiple countries with multiple entities, this results in even more maintenance effort. Then once you've said all that and realized, okay, generation, okay, I can cope with that. Templates, I can manage with that. Then the ultimate roadblocker comes when it comes to the storage of the documents. What we see is, on the one hand side, where standardization fails, there documents are more and more hard to find, and the full categorization of documents is more cumbersome than ever, which means finding the right document, be it for the audit trail or for just a simple HR request, takes more time than it should, definitely should. And lastly, when speaking about the documents, the right documents should be available and accessible for the right people, it also raises security concerns. On one hand side, for heightened security concerns, meaning in Germany, we have very strict data privacy law when it comes to sensitive documents. Managers, for example, should be eligible for viewing most of the documents, but not all. HR, for example, should be eligible to view all that. And the employee itself should be accessible and available and eligible to view his or her own documents. And what does it lead to? And what are the real costs and risks behind it? On the one hand side, of course, it's the massive administrative waste. Our research, based on surveys, studies across Workday clients, indicates that HR admins can spend up to 40%. It's 2 days out of the 5 days working week solely on document-related tasks. And this time could be spent on what truly matters, enhancing employee experience. Because ultimately, it's about attracting top talent, retaining top talent, and developing these talents. Secondly, what it leads to is exposure to compliance risks and legal circumstances. Without a singular integrated solution, audit trails are often non-existent. Documents can even get lost in translation, and adherence to data retention policies becomes increasingly difficult. On a day-to-day operation, and that goes hand in hand with the administrative waste, this results in operational drag and therefore in a compromised employee experience. And lastly, when speaking about data lakes, when speaking about making everything ready for the AI journey, this creates a data darkness when documents are not stored where they should be or should only be accessible for the people that should be allowed to. And the core question, even if all those 4 impact scenarios do sound valid, is why care and why now? You all dialed in today, Tuesday morning, for this web session to see a perspective on how you can get on and enhance your employee experience when it comes to document-centered processes. We believe document management is still the #1 unresolved pain point, especially in the Workday ecosystem, but I think we can even expand that scenario. So what are the strategic costs of fragmented HR? It's not only an administrative task, it's actively draining efficiency, creating compliance risks, diverting HR teams from strategic works, and all of that undermines the significant Workday investment, for example. And we look at it in a specific case today. And here's why. We're talking about unlocking full Workday potential. Many of you have invested in Workday, for example, as your HR foundation, and yet a critical piece, a truly integrated document management, often remains unaddressed. And that means unlocking the full power, the full potential of the platform you already own. And that is exactly and precisely the gap we try to close. With our integrated solution, built on Workday solution, we transform the HR documentation from a liability more into a strategic asset that forces efficiency, ensures compliance, and overall provides a more superior employee experience. I think that is what it's all about. And of course, as we've been for quite a while in the market, we've seen some neutral solutions, let's say, where organizations started to look at document management and figured out their own way. And these are the 4 scenarios that we found, and most high frequent scenarios, let's say. On one hand side, reliance on the disparate storage, so reliance on network drives, on physical storage, does not really solve the ultimate critical HR documentation case. Then we saw many custom integrations. Building is costly, but also maintaining becomes increasingly difficult with more solutions, with more documents, and maybe even more connections to make. Then, of course, there's always the idea of investing in a standalone solution, because HR may not be the only one who needs document generation processes. So thinking about a standalone document management system, a DMS, may be the way to go. But unfortunately, even that fails when it comes to the non-integration and being separated outside of the silo. And hence, we also see some resignation signs where just the acceptance of doing the manual high maintenance effort is still the most popular, unfortunately, the most popular way to go. So why do these common approaches create even more work than less? On the one hand side, it's that it creates a fragmented ecosystem. Thinking about having a standalone DMS outside or custom integrations, what does it lead to? It leads to persistent manual efforts, especially when resigning. What does maintenance manual efforts lead to also? It means a heightened compliance risk. It becomes increasingly difficult to establish robust audit trails, enforce consistent retention policies, and ultimately maintain the necessary security standards across disparate systems. And ultimately, what does it lead to? And why does it create more work instead of less? It is because it's unsustainable when it comes to scaling. But we wouldn't be here if we hadn't had a smart solution. So Daniel, why don't you tell our audience about how we can address that and what a perspective is that we're going to show them?
Thanks, Thomas. That's exactly the question that we asked ourselves and that led to the solution that we're happy to show and present today. So we call it the PwC's Document Management Suite, powered by ESCRIBA, meaning that we bring the both worlds together and try to solve all of these problems. But the key here is that this is not only about document storage. The idea is that you want to generate your documents, archive them, and purge them all in Workday. So have them all in one system, integrated along the way, thanks to the PwC Document Management Suite. But we're also aware that this might always not be the only way or the only area where you store your documents. Or where you have your data, because what we want to enable you is kind of like with this solution that you can make the right solutions or the right decisions based on this, but also create all of the documents that you need as easily as possible and as efficient as possible. For this, we also allow you to have a data exchange with other core systems. So if you, in your environment, use other systems than Workday, like SAP, ServiceNow, Salesforce, whatever it might be, we like to say as long as there is a good API or a good interface that we can use, either we have a pre-configured connector that we can directly use out of the box, or we will help you to create one of these connectors to also bring this data into our solution. And last but not least, of course, also you might have other, we call them satellite systems, like payroll systems, benefit systems, fleet management, whatever it might be. So other systems that rely on the data, we can also use this information generating documents, but we can also store data that was used while generating a document back into these satellite systems. So with this, let's jump to the next slide. And the question is now, what can our solution do for your organization? Well, first it offers, and that's the first column that we've seen, the automated document generation in ESCRIBA. Means we have a slightly different approach. We don't use a template-based approach. We have a rule-based approach, which allows you to generate more documents with way less maintenance and effort than you have compared to other systems, meaning that we compile the documents while we generate them out of different text blocks. And Michael will talk about this in more detail in a second. In addition, we have automated workflows and approvals, meaning that especially when it comes to documents, 4I principles, multi-approvers, or whatever you might need in your organizations are in many cases a standard that you will need to use. And we can enable you to do so either through our ESCRIBA solution or, as far as it goes, also with Workday in its core itself. Thomas will talk about this in a minute. We are PwC's part is there is an intelligent tagging and storage solution, all making use of the most out of Workday, meaning the documents stay in Workday. Your document storage that you already pay for with Workday is used for that, but also that you can make use of all of your security setup that you already have in place and do not have to rethink about this. The tagging allows you then to have a rapid search and retrieval, lowering the efforts that Thomas talked about when it comes to document-related processes in your HR departments, or also for the managers, meaning that it's the solution will make it very easy to find the right documents at the right point in time, report them, or request additional documents if needed. And last but not least, of course, with this, bringing a complete compliance or security of being compliant when it comes to documents, but also giving you the ability to purge the documents as you need to purge them on a very granular level, dependent on the processes where the documents are coming from. So how do we do this? Well, the Workday market is evolving really quickly on all of these solutions. Well, we are both very happy, so PwC and ESCRIBA, that we are built on Workday partners, meaning that our solutions are completely integrated into Workday using this built on Workday program, which means for you, it's very easy. It feels like a Workday solution in the end. The software is maintained by us, but in the end, it's very easy to integrate. It's approved by Workday, meaning it follows certain security guidelines, it follows the coding standards, and it's kept up to date through the same software distribution system that you know from Workday in itself. We do this through the Workday app marketplace, which is growing rapidly. All the solutions that you see today are also part of the Workday app marketplace. We're happy to participate there on both sides. PwC is actually one of the leading providers in the Workday partner apps section with more than 24 apps. We have right now 2 apps in there, but we're also happy to have them. But last but not least, of course, PwC is a leading partner for the expansion in the market. We're a smaller company, but we're doing our best also to stick up with that, but also to keep you up to date and to achieve your strategic goals with all of this, what you're doing. And with this, Michael, can you tell us a little bit more about now how the document generation works in detail?
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into that. I think the document generation part is of course at the core of ESCRIBA, and I think some of the audience may already know a little bit about ESCRIBA, but of course what we're talking here about is the how also we've integrated it into Workday to make it a seamless experience. But still, let's take a couple of minutes just to talk about how ESCRIBA generates documents, because I think Daniel, you already mentioned a little bit before, it's not template based in a sense, but we call it document playbooks. We let data and rules control the content and the appearance of documents instead of relying on, for example, Word documents that include all of the information about and connecting all the information like layout, like content, etc., in one place, which makes much more difficult to handle and to maintain. So just a quick look on the theory behind our document generation, and we'll see it a little bit in action in a demo in a minute. So what I'd like to say is that it's very important to understand that and this is why I was mentioning the Word document before, that we separate all the elements that are necessary to create a document. And the elements of a document typically are the layout. Of course, we have data, we have rules, we have content, and all of those are separate elements in our system, which allow us then later to put them together again in any kind of flexibility that we need. If we look at the flow here, we see on the lower left side, we see that almost anything starts with data, right? So typically, when we start with data comes in HR, mostly, of course, coming from your core systems. For us, it doesn't really matter which core systems there are. Could be SAP, Workday, Oracle, etc. Of course, we're talking about Workday today. But this is just one of the possibilities. Usually you will have additional, I think, Daniel, you called them satellite systems before. So those are systems, all of them we can connect to generate our documents. Of course, sometimes not all data is automatically available, be it because maybe the system isn't available. Hopefully that's not the case. We will connect to almost any system, but maybe it's not available, or the data isn't really in any system, but it's in people's head or need to be decided on the spot. This is why we have our ESCRIBA dialog. So this is a component, basically a wizard that allows us at any point of time to supplement any additional data that might not be available automatically. Once we got all the data that we need to generate a document, it is fed into our engine. And what you will have done before is you will have created all of the necessary elements to create a document. So there will be content blocks, obviously. Content block can be something like, can be just a paragraph of data or even less, but a content block can also, of course, be a whole page, can be a logo, can be anything that you want to appear on the document. And this is typically maintained separate in small reusable blocks. There's also base layout, so we keep the whole formatting separated, meaning you can define layout, you can define margins, etc. on the document separately. This will not be part, and it's not part of the definition of the text box, for example, but it's completely separate, meaning you can, and in the end, replace it very easily, and you can also interchange them depending on what kind of document you're trying to generate. So in the middle, this is our engine. Everything comes together, the rules, the data, and everything, and then documents are generated. How do we generate documents? We don't just generate documents and just output a PDF and we're done. We have lots of configuration also, because for us, also the output is also part of the document definition. So if you look at the upper right part on the output, we see that we can control different output channels. I think that's quite important. You probably know most of them. You can send it via email. You can put it into a document, into a workflow system. We can store it in some e-files. We can easily send it also to digital signatures. So we also support any kind of digital signature service provider that you have. You can reprint it, etc., etc. And it can also be done. You can also create a document and send it to multiple channels at the same time. So we're very, very flexible how to output documents. And at the same time, also when we create document, we just don't create just maybe one document. But if you think, for example, on a work contract, it might be necessary to append attachments, for example, or you want to send an email with a letter and then the contract as an attachment. All of those are things that we can support, and of course also bulk documents are possible. So not just creating one document, but creating thousands of individualized single documents in a go at the same time. So all of this is what ESCRIBA provides, and this is basically what we provide into connection for Workday, and we're going to see it into play now in our quick demo in a second. So let's have just the last slide. I want to visualize this a little bit. So I said before, this is a slide a little bit about theory, what's all behind that. Very quickly, what's the benefit? How can this look like? Typically, as I said, we don't have a document template like a Word template, but we have a document rule. So when we start with a document rule, we are much more flexible. So you have, in our case, typically for work contract, we have one rule. And if you look, we are generating two documents from the same kind of rule sets. For one, it's employee A that has certain characteristics. For example, he works in subsidiary A, therefore he gets a different layout. He works part-time, is entitled to weekend bonuses, and on the other hand, we have the employee B, works in a different subsidiary, works full-time, receives vehicle allowance. But still, this is all, both documents are generated from one rule set. They make use and reuse all the text blocks that they can reuse, and and our engine changes the things that need to be changed based on the data that was provided. But again, all coming from one from the same document rule set. And I think it's pretty clear, and we'll see it in a bit also a couple more examples why this is going to be massively increase your efficiency in document generation. how it's going to enable centralized services for subsidiaries. You already see it. You don't need to create multiple templates at the same time. And of course, since it's all coming from the same rule set, we see massively improved compliance and legal security, of course, also for our customers. So Daniel, how does it look like when we integrate our document generation engine into Workday?
Thanks, Michael. Let me quickly start sharing. I think it should start any second. Missing my screen? Yes, okay, great. We're in Workday now. So this is one of our demo environments that we're using. And keep in mind, this is just a glimpse. We can do more, and we'll talk about this later. So we will want to just give you a first impression of what's possible. So we're in a candidate profile. The candidate is Alfredo Burks. He applied for a call center or to be a call center manager. Let's pretend we want to issue a first offer or a contract. So we integrated this completely into the business process, meaning we're just going to start the business process for offer, or actually the person is already in the offer stage. So we're going to make a new offer. In this case, I'm just going to use everything that's already in Workday. So we're just going to open the business process, and there we have the guided view. And this would work, of course, for every business process, no matter if it's hire, change job, termination, actually every business process that you would like to add it to. We're just going to use this one to make it really easy to follow and make it very short. So let's say we negotiated with Alfredo about the salary, classical thing, I would say, and we admit him a raise or 5% more in salary, meaning we're going to change the salary in the offer to 90,300 euros. We're just going to submit this. What happens now on the background is that we can decide with everything that we include in Workday if we call this being a background process or dark processing, meaning that there should be no interaction and the end user wouldn't even see ESCRIBA and the document just gets generated. For an offer or a contract, I would say this is highly unlikely. So in this case, we use what we call an interactive document. So in this case, I now get a new inbox item which tells me that I need to complete the document in the ESCRIBA Composer. The ESCRIBA Composer, as you will see in a second, I can click on the link, is a web interface, and this can be completely changed from the layout, from the look and feel, that it looks more like Workday, looks more like your corporate branding. In this case, now it's branded to ESCRIBA. And it is, you can imagine it like a questionnaire or like an interaction form where you can add additional information to the document. Of course, everything that we can directly interface from Workday or any other system into the document, we wouldn't ask you. But for the sake of the demo, we kept this, I would say, stupider than it needs to be, and we're going to show how this could work out. So in this case, we're going to say it's an ERA contract in Germany. I get presented with more options as soon as I click this one. I can now make selections if this is fixed term, if the person would need to work abroad. I can select the working hours. Like I said, this could also come from Workday or from SAP or any other system. I get presented with more options as soon as I select this. And in this case, we're going to keep it short. I'm going to just say, what is the payment principle for this contract? Let's say it's Leistungsentgelt. I can enter what would the probation period look like, and the system is telling me, okay, the form is done, you're all done. I can open as well a summary page similar to Workday where I can see everything that I entered or which is needed. I can also click on it, directly jump there, make a change if I had something wrong. And in this case, we're going to generate a preview first. So I can click on preview, and the system is going to do a rendering up front to give me a first impression about how the document would look like. In this case, it has then watermarks, right? But we're interfacing already Alfredo Burke's data. So the name, the first name, the start date, to which position the person is going to get an offer. We have the raised basic pay in there. I didn't enter any additional payment details, and I can see, well, this is how the document would look like. I could now go back, make changes, and all your changes might have an impact on which paragraphs are shown, how the layout might look like, etc., as Michael just explained earlier. In this case, I'm happy with the contract, and I'm going to click on create, which means the system now is creating the final version. And we set this up in such a way, as you can see here, and this is also dependent on your setup, that you can do a post-processing of the document itself. So similar what you can do in Workday. But I can only make changes to areas where we put it in from a security perspective that this is allowed. I can see this, it's easily identifiable in this case with that, well, I think it's bluish background. I can click on it and the editor opens up. I can enter the text that I would like to have. That's great. Editable text. And I'm clicking on OK. In this case, of course, all of this can be audited, the changes that are done, etc. But it also is going to show me the change was done. So it will show here in a bright yellow background that this was changed. And well, I'm happy with it. I'm going to click on save. This is how I want to have it generated. I don't know. Let me wait. Is it doing something? Ah, okay. Just it took a minute. I'm fine with it now with everything that I did, and I'm gonna click on I'm done. The system is now generating the real final PDF, which is then also not editable more in any case. Going to preview me that and also bring it back to Workday in the background. Takes a second today. I don't know what it is. So, but now I have the final document. As you can see, it also has my change in there. So that's great, editable text, and I can no longer change it. I'm going to close it and also close my window. What happens in the background is that the system or ESCRIBA brings back the document. Let me quickly refresh the inbox. And I can now see also in the inbox item that I have received that the composer is unavailable. This document is done. So I can submit it. And with this, the rest of the business process can go on if needed. So you could now send it for signature. You could do wet signature. You could print it, whatever you would like. That's then up to the person or dependent on your process. And in this case, it opens Alfredo as again, because we're in the office cycle. So now I can open the attachments. In this case, we decided we will store it to the attachments of the candidate. I can click on the preview, and this is the document that we've just seen. I didn't have to do anything, and it also consists of my editable text. So that was also transferred, and now I can continue with the process. I could renegotiate, I could do again, etc., etc. So also for you, important to know, this also works as an ad hoc. It doesn't need to be generated. So there are certain documents where we think it makes sense that you might not need a business process, like references, reference letters, or really simple documents also that you might just need to reissue. You don't need to start a business process for that. We will provide you with a task that you can do that ad hoc. So with this, I'm giving it back to Michael, actually. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this now behaves to the Workday standard?
Yes, let's have a quick look, and oh, we'll have to scroll back. Let's have a look at some points I think that are quite important, especially if you're in a selection process for a document that maybe you already have something, or you're working with a Workday solution for document generation. Why is that? Why do we think it's superior, and why you should look into that, and how can it be helpful for you to have this add-on functionality? So if you look roughly at some points, we think it's really important. It's we can do document creation both, and Daniel just mentioned that, both with workflow as well as ad hoc. Most of the standard solutions require you to run it in a business process. So that's already often much more helpful to generate a document ad hoc without having to change the system or starting a business process. We also saw that that we can handle very very complex environment, very complex document generation. I think the document that we just saw, the contract already showcased. We just ran through that very quickly, but of course, it includes a lot of logic generating arbitrary complexity of the document. So it's there's no real limit except your imagination, and I think that is not quite true for the standard solutions on the market. It's quite important also I think the Workday integration, native built on Workday integration, there's no custom development necessary, right? Everything comes out of the box, just a little bit of configuration, and you're good to go with our system to generate documents. There's no internal integrations here, additional external integration necessary, no development necessary, etc. This is quite a powerful feature, and our solution also pulls external data quite as much as it pulls data from Workday on the fly, right? So we just get the data at the document generation time, be it from SAP, ServiceNow, Salesforce, any other system that you need to pull data at the same time can be used to generate documents that were triggered from Workday. This also applies, of course, to bulk document, for example. We can also pull data from external systems for bulk documents. This is something that's usually not part of the capabilities of the external or other competitor solutions. I think compliance and governance is also quite interesting, of course. Automatic audit trails and versioning, including timestamp and change tracking. I think that's quite important, especially also on the then later on the archiving part, and of course multi-language governance. I think we just saw a German contract right now, but of course in our system this can be changed with one click. It's just a different data point, which then will force the document generation into a different playbook. But it makes it very easy to maintain multi-language documents very, very easily. So I think those are the key points I would like to talk about. Of course, each of them we can dive into and talk about them for hours. But I think it's quite interesting to think a little bit about those points. Maybe as a wrap up here. What are the key business results here from our document generation? I think we are extremely strong on the template creation and management, right? So there's enhanced efficiency. I think this makes it very, very clear. I already mentioned a couple of times. It's very easy to maintain those templates because there's very high reusability of the templates, very decreasing the amount of effort that needs to be done to generate those documents. We think template compliance and scalability is something that's very important also to us. We see for our customers, for example, in terms of scalability. So if they increase operations, if they add a subsidiary, if they increase number of employees, if they increase the complexity in their documents requirements, this is something that is very easy to handle with our system without much of additional effort, which makes again increases the efficiency quite a lot. Multilingual and flexible integration, we just talked about it a little bit. It's very easy, of course, then if you have a multinational entity and you need to create documents for multiple languages, it makes it very easy. The document layouts can be customized as you wish, very easy, and as well as the integration of extra additional data is very easy on our platform. Again, making integration into your landscape, not just Workday, but the rest of the landscape, also very, very easy. And last but not least, of course, we see increased productivity in terms of with our document creation and post-processing, as we saw just quickly, as Daniel showed. It streamlines the approval process. It makes it easier to work with one document base, right? Because you don't have the post-processing allows you to cover corner cases, which maybe you cannot put in document rules. Therefore, again, decreasing the complexity of the whole system. So I think those are some key points that are very interesting And if you compare them maybe to the existing solution, maybe your existing solution, or if you're working with Workday standard solutions, I think that's quite interesting to look into that.
Wonderful, Michael. And let me proceed. You remember the original image that we showed, especially the challenges that we saw. So we covered the first two, I'd say, quite comfortably with generation and template management. And now I have the honor to walk you through the solution when it comes to the archiving and purging piece, so about compliance and storage. And with that, our solution adds to the existing document storage, which Daniel already shared. So it leverages the document storage already in your Workday subscription. It allows also for a fully native Workday intuitive design. And ultimately, and that's the most strengthening point, it supports the data hygiene, meaning it allows for the conformity with retention policies and purging periods, all by using the Workday standard and adding functionality that is not just simply there yet. And now, enough talk. Let's move over to the demo. And I'll welcome you back to the Workday home. This should look very familiar. I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, so our overall super user. And within the Workday home, I quickly navigate to a, let's say, standard view of worker documents as you may perceive them today. So we look at our lovely colleague Chad Anderson, see under the personal documents tab that documents are stored there in a arbitrary order, ultimately in a tabular format. So we see on the one hand side the worker document itself, we can access it. We see the number one document category, so document category at one level. We see whether it's been created within a business process. We see also some comments and the upload date. And here already is the tricky part. So imagine many of the clients we support have a huge chunk of migration effort, so transferring physical files into their Workday system. And that creates one problem in particular, one challenge in particular. If we just simply look at the upload date, especially for, let's say, legacy documents, the upload date has no meaning whatsoever on the document's validity. And this is already where the standard, let's say, does not provide sufficient functionality. And you already may have grasped it. You see here a new tab, View All Worker Documents, where our solution adds the value that we are looking for. So I'll switch over to this tab and see the documents are all in the tabular format as well, and have the standard functionality regarding the document category. But now we see additional columns. We call them tags. So we add metadata to the documents. And one crucial metadata, for example, is especially the time tag. Time tag, meaning documents, legacy documents, migrated into the system have one certain upload date. And now we add a so-called effective date to the document, because maybe the document has been in effect for 5 years now, but just has recently been uploaded to the system. And this can be tracked, for example, here. Then we have the text tags, which allow for one thing and one purpose only. It allows for a deeper categorization. You know, the typical tree structure of the file structure. This is the closest we can get in Workday with the native design and allows for more deeper integration. And then there are more, let's say, reporting tags that we add to the solution. And this can be used for reporting purposes, location tags, cost center tags, company tags, but can also be perceived as, okay, there's a logic now. I see now this employee has worked for the German entity for quite a while, but has been moved to the Polish entity. And in Poland, the purging and retention policies may differ to specific documents. And now I see from just one glimpse already, okay, this document may need to be treated differently just based on the regionality. And this is what we add to the standard. But of course, this user interface will be great if we just have one employee that we're looking at and only focus on documents at a time. But that's not scalable. So for a scalable solution, we introduce a new user interface that allows for a more deeper and more effective way to interact with documents. So within this user interface, HR operations especially have now the possibility to look at one employee in a more granular level. With 8 documents, it's still quite manageable, we perceive, but still we see all the documents here and now have the possibility to combine certain keywords, tags, to determine the right document that we're looking for. That can be, I only want to look at documents who have been in effect since last year, or who only apply for a certain location, for example, the Polish embassy. And I can just use the filter functionality here. And when it becomes really more powerful is if we not only pick one employee, but let's pick 2 or even 3 employees in that same view. So you see here, I included several employees already, our Chad Anderson, Logan McNeil herself, and another colleague. And now I see all the documents in one grid view. All the tags applied to the certain documents. I see the typical action buttons where I can jump on in a minute. And here I can also do the combination of filters. For example, I do want to retrieve only documents who have the location tag of Germany. And I now get the view of only the documents who have been created while the person was in Germany. And I see, for example, even though I picked several workers, I only get the documents for Chad Anderson who worked in a German entity. And this can be done with several filters and tag functionality. And that is just one view that we would like to showcase. So we believe that this is a way more effective way to interact with documents. And if, for example, you see there's a scalability issue or something that you need to adjust afterwards, after you configured it initially, you see the action buttons based on the document itself, where you have the possibility to adjust the tags that have been assigned, remove them all, or even interact with the document, be it, for example, like a manual removing of the document. And where is the center hub, the cockpit, let's say? This I'll show you in a minute. So we're still in the native Workday environment. You know, with the new interface of Workday, something has changed. The menu bar has slightly switched. And now under the More tab, we see, for example, a Documents Tags solution. I clicked it up already and welcome you to the admin portal. And this admin portal, on the one hand side, this is the day-to-day operations where you can manage the tags, see all the tags that have been in place, how many of those tags are active, and adjust them. But more importantly, we really want to facilitate the maintenance, make it easy. So instead of manually adding the metadata to documents, there's a solution that helps assign the tags automatically. And we look at this very center. So on the one hand side, we distinguish between 2 certain rule functionalities. On the one hand side, the simple rules, meaning we use the data that is already there, but just not shown. So organizational data from Workday, for example, which company the person is at the very moment when the document has been created, which company the employee has been working in, and just simply add these information to the document. Automatically, you don't have to do anything, just have set up the rules and then let's take it from there. And then the more complex part is especially retention. Let's look at a typical use case. Some employee leaves the firm and usually there apply several retention policies, especially for the employee contract, for example. So in Germany, the legislation means that employee contract should be stored for at least 10 years after the employee leaves the company. So 10 years from now, normally you should set yourself a reminder, somewhat take it as a Wiedervorlage in your own inbox, but that's not manageable. It's manageable for 1 employee, maybe for 5 employees, but imagine a scale from thousands of employees with a fluctuation of 100 employees leaving the firm each year. How do you manage that? How do you manage the calendar? I don't want to look at it. So therefore, we apply our so-called advanced rules and just look at the rule of the employee contract storage for Germany. So this can be also done regionally. So we maintain the rule, so we open it up and see, we give it a catchy name, so we know exactly what rule does it refer to. We give it a description. So here we see, for example, the legal retention according to the German legislation law and regulation. And we see here what kind of operation is it basically? When does it get into effect? So we see here it is based on the employee termination. So it scans through documents of employees leaving the firm. It can also be done when employees add documents themselves, part of a business process, or using the ESCRIBA functionality when creating documents. And you see here the tags that are then applied. So if the employee leaves the firm, the retention tag of 10 years after termination gets applied. And the great thing is you don't have to type in, okay, the exact date 10 years from now, but the system takes the termination date and applies it to the document dynamically. Meaning you only have this one retention tag, the 10 years after termination, and whether an employee leaves next month or 3 months from now or next year, the tag itself is applied to all of these, but the exact date is calculated based on the information given from the Workday system. And this, as a quick run through, the way of handling documents more effectively and ensuring that purging actually really is easier done than ever before. And one quick highlight that I would like to show before we wrap this all up is, as said, we use already information that is already there within Workday for the simple rules. So the automatic assignments really makes it easier to tag and to assign the documents with the correct metadata, just using the data that is already in your Workday system, and also allow for a more complex scenario where you would normally have different calendars or setups in place. And here, you know, this view by view comparison, we've also done it. I think the most important thing is, Daniel, we'll gladly share the entire slide deck of today with the audience, so you have enough time to digest it further. So this, of course, is only a glimpse of our solutions. But the one thing that I would really like to focus on is this one, the rule-based automatic purging. So I touched upon the retention tags. When they get applied, then documents have this exact date in the future. And we then start a report and integration using the standard Workday purging framework. Meaning you have the possibility to, on one hand side, decide on the cadence. Do you want to purge documents every month, every quarter, or even at the end of the year? That's entirely up to you. And you even have a fail-safe mechanism, let's say, where you have the possibility to review all the documents that would be now eligible for purging, and you can manually deselect the documents. If you're good to go, then the purging framework takes in effect. And all of that leads to your competitive edge. The reason why we're all here today, and linking all the solutions back to the problem statement initially thought, we believe our solution eliminates all of this administrative burden. So addressing the 2 days out of 5 days and reducing it massively through smart ways of handling documents, templates, and effective interaction with documents, ensuring compliance and supporting data hygiene, accelerating the processes of one, documenting and generating the documents, and also retrieving the right documents. And as they're all reportable data fields in your Workday system, you now have even a more, a new area that you can unlock to really unlock the new full potential of your Workday system. And we're not just sharing it for the sake of this demo, we also have some use cases that we would like to touch upon in a brief scenario. One I already touched upon We had supported a client in Germany with migrating several hundred thousands of documents from their legacy system to Workday, making sure that they get tagged with the correct information, the effective date, and also structured and classified additionally more than 1 million documents, and allowed for a ongoing data hygiene, a truly single source of truth in Workday, and ultimately the 100% transparency when it comes to document interaction. And if you're now interested in charting your path through the transformation, you saw at the beginning where most of the market we perceive at the very moment is the current reality, a very fragmented, manual, and risky, and even resource-intense HR document management workflow, to a state B, we call it the future with PwC's and ESCRIBA's document management solution, a very streamlined, automated, and compliant solution that ultimately empowers your HR function. And we call it the PwC journey powered by ESCRIBA. And Daniel, if the audience now says, okay, that's really something that I want to dive deeper, what can it do?
Absolutely. We prepared some immediate actions for call to actions for you. So the first one is, as Thomas said, you will receive this afterwards. This is our cheat sheet that we already have created for you. If you take a look at this afterwards and have the feeling that at least on 2, you have the feeling this directly applies to you and is a topic for you, feel free to reach out to us. We're here happy to support you and do deeper dive sessions. As that, this is just a glimpse of what's possible, and it's done really in the quickest way possible. How can you reach out to us? Well, we have prepared something for that as well. We have a QR code. Like I said, you will receive it afterwards as well. You can scan it anytime, book some time with us. We have dedicated specialists who are able to talk with you, understand your problem, where you're standing, but also then how good the solution fits to you and what is the most effective way to get it going. Thomas, is there something
Wonderful.
more?
And then there's one special giveaway, and I already saw some questions in the Q&A, so we'll jump to that right afterwards. There's one special webinar giveaway for all those of you participating today. From PwC side, we host the so-called Workday Tomorrow event, a truly immersive experience that goes deeper and way beyond the typical niche and the surface, let's say, of the current Workday state. We do it now in the 5th annual version and even expanded across Europe. And we invite you today to get your ticket for free at one of either those 4 addresses. I myself will be at the one in Frankfurt between the 24th and the 26th of March. And I would love to see some of you guys being there. You have the possibility to register now or afterwards, where you can directly be redirected to the registration page. And then, Daniel, I think there's even one further special announcement.
Yes, it's like Christmas today, a little bit early for Christmas, but we know that Workday Elevate is coming in Berlin. We have we're happy to say save the date. We have a pre-event planned with PwC on the evening of the 27th of April in our office, where you can join us for food, drink, but also, of course, networking, exchange, etc., etc. So if you plan to be early at Workday Elevate, feel also free to reach out to us. We're happy to have you in our office and have you join us there and have some more discussions. So let's jump into the Q&A. We're a little bit short on time. Let's start. So the first question that we received is, what is the main difference between ECAP and the suite that we just showed? Michael, do you want to briefly answer that?
Yeah, let's go. I think and the document management that we just saw is fully integrated into Workday, right? So this is a decision if you want to do it this way. The documents are stored in Workday, of course, and you can work with the Workday functionality on the documents. It's correct. ESCRIBA ECAP also has its own capabilities, also storage and workflow that can supplement this whole solution. It's more of a strategic question, of course, if you want to store the documents and should they remain in Workday or external, right? But both ways is definitely possible.
Thanks. The second question, maybe I take that one. This is about integration to signature software. Yes, I think we mentioned this in the beginning. We have a signature manager included in that as well. So we provide out-of-the-box solutions for Adobe, DocuSign, which are the biggest, but also for other ones if you have dedicated need for, let's say, Switzerland or other legislative areas. Yes, this can be easily integrated. And as I said earlier, we're happy to jump with you onto this into a deep dive. And the second part of the question was, is it possible to export the documents out of Workday to a different storage? If, let's say, you would like to not store everything in Workday or have different sources, yes, of course, that's possible, either directly from the generation piece. You can decide where the document gets stored. It doesn't need to get stored in Workday, but also if you have stored them, need to export them at a later point in time into an external system, that is possible as well. And the last question, maybe Thomas, you can quickly answer that. What happens if the employee changes the country? Will the tags stay on the document based on the country in which they were added, or will they change when the employee changes the country?
Yes, thank you for the question. Exact distinguishing is very important. Here, I can briefly say the tags which were initially assigned based on the country will stay, meaning you have this audit trail in a complete way. If an employee, just an example, if an employee starts in Germany and the location changes after a certain point in time, as long as the employee works in the German organization, the tags of the country tag Germany will get assigned to all the documents created in the meantime. And once the employee moves, for example, to Poland, as seen before, then only from there, the new tags, the new country tags get assigned to the new documents created. And to add to the note from your end, from the question before, exporting documents out of Workday to a third-party document storage system, we even support several clients at the very moment who have this exact use case, as they have their solution already in place and their workflow in place. That is possible, combining the power of generating documents, for example, with ESCRIBA and Workday, categorizing them in Workday, but then at a certain point in time, making sure an integration exports the document from Workday to the dedicated solution, the third-party document storage system. That is also possible.
Thanks a lot for the quick feedback. I can only say thank you so much to both of you for doing the webinar with us, and we hope also that everybody in the audience, we provided enough information to you and give you a first glimpse of what's possible. Like I said, we're super happy to stay in touch with you. Feel free to reach out to us. You will receive the recording and the slides afterwards. And we would be very looking forward to interact with you in the future, either personally at Workday Elevate or one of the PwC events, or of course, if you want to reach out to us earlier, we're also happy to schedule a call with you at any point in time. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.